she can tell that I'm having a hard time talking about all this, so she's giving me 11s. So sweet. My baby. Yeah, thank you. She's so sweet. She knows when her mom is sad. Hey guys, this week is Suicide Prevention Week. As I've been talking about, I'm super passionate about suicide prevention, and today I'm going to be sharing part 2 of my journey and struggle with suicide and overcoming and managing and dealing with it. So, left off last time talking about the fact that I had gone to a trauma therapy center. This is something that I think is really amazing if you have trauma in your past and do not know how to deal with it. Regular counseling is absolutely a wonderful way of dealing with it. But if your counselor does not have any training in actual trauma, the effects of trauma, how to overcome trauma, it's something that you may want to pursue and look for another counselor, or like I went to a trauma intensive therapy center, which I will put that information for that center on this video as well. But I went through this week intensive trauma therapy thanks to my sister's generosity, and helped me to process and overcome a lot of different things in my life. I learned about inner child, the fact that we all have this inner child, and that inner child can get stuck in the midst of the past trauma and not be able to go forward, and then processing those traumatic events and then recovering from them and feeling safe so that you can move forward in your life, which is what I did in this week, which was extremely intense. They used video, talking back and forth to your inner child and your current self. They used art therapy. They used medical hypnosis. This couple specifically devoted their lives to trauma, and I think we're basically seeing the effects of war veterans. Anyways, that's something to look into. So that's where I left off. I went to this trauma intensive, and then through talking to my counselor, I ended up deciding that I needed to leave the area and start new somewhere else. So I did that, and my psychiatrist at the time said, I want you to follow up. Like, the only way I release you to basically go somewhere else is if you go and get a new psychiatrist and remain on medication and regular counseling. And so I went to Louisiana, and I didn't do any of that. And I'm pretty stubborn. I have a lot of health issues, so medication has always affected me, and so I've always been afraid to take certain medications because of all my other health issues. So I went on this journey. I had been on this journey of health for years, but I, pursued a lot of natural ways of doing things. So I've always been a proponent of trying to heal thyself through natural ways, so exercise, diet, counseling, prayer, spiritual direction, any way that possibly you can heal and deal with these inner things without including other medications or stuff like that. So I went for years, really like going from one thing to the next, really having a hard time finding stability. I'll kind of fast forward because I definitely struggled most of my early 20s with suicidal thoughts. It got super intense after I got married, the year after I got married. We were having a difficult year. We were having financial struggle, which, was not good for William and I. And I kind of started imploding again. I had been able to somewhat manage those thoughts, and I would kind of go in and out of periods with those thoughts. I started to really implode because there were some situations that had happened around our wedding and stuff like that made a bunch of things come back to the surface. So I started really struggling again. And this time I actually started cutting, which I never struggled with before, but I think I was so desperate at this point because I was hurting so much that it was at least a release. And that's where cutting comes in. A lot of people don't understand what that is. Like, when you feel so much mental pain, it becomes very physically burdening, and it's a release. As weird as that is, people who struggle with this, it feels like a relief because the desire to hurt oneself is so bad that just cutting felt in a sense like a relief, which it wasn't. When you're in that much mental pain, it becomes a way of coping. It's a coping mechanism, which over the years I found different bad coping mechanisms like alcohol or just over trying to fix myself with things, whether it be extreme dieting or extreme regimens, self-fixing or self-help books or binge eating. Gosh, there were so many things over the years that I tried to self-soothe with. So at this point, I had not been going to regular counseling. I'm trying to think of how it started that I went back into counseling. There was just kind of a lot of relationships imploding around me because of my choices. And I finally gained the strength somehow, by the grace of God, to start going to counseling again. That's when healing really started to begin, even though I wasn't really, I don't think even admitting at the time how much I had been struggling. I don't even remember, honestly. All I know is that my poor husband saw me through all of that, and there was several times where he came home to me with a knife in my hand and had to pull the knife from my hand. And so my husband was dealing with like a panic, and still deals with that at times, where, even though I'm in a healthy place right now, like he has his own like trauma with that. And so as a caretaker, it can be very hard for somebody who is struggling with this. Started to finally go to counseling and started to open up about all the things that I was struggling with. I can't say enough for counseling, and the stigma of counseling that only crazy people go to it needs to stop. Like, we need to stop shaming people. And I've witnessed this actually pretty recently in my life. I was very vocal about the fact that I was going to counseling, and then the reaction that I had because I was vocal about it was that I was crazy, which is really sad. It's sad that you would think somebody is crazy for going to counseling, because anybody who goes to counseling is actually very strong and has the courage to look deep within themselves and say, hey, I'm really struggling and I want to fix this. I want a better life for myself. So nobody should be shaming anybody for going to counseling. In fact, we should be making it as accessible as possible to those around us and taking the stigma off, taking the shame off, because the reality is we all know that life is hard, that there's not 1 second or one person in this world that can say that they have never struggled with anything mentally. So, I know I'm getting really intense, but I'm really passionate and I'm really sick of this. We need to stop shaming each other about mental health. Okay, so side note, that was my random rant. So I started going to counseling, and this woman started to gently unpack like years and years of suffering and years of trauma and years of not being taught how to manage my life. Like, I didn't realize that counseling was making up for areas that I had not been taught certain life skills. That's what my counselor has done for me. She's helped me to learn how to process emotions. She's helped me to learn how to process my feelings or my difficult situations or even good situations, how to accept that, there were certain things that caused me to be this way, but that doesn't make me crazy. And there were certain things that, that I'm a very strong, resilient person, and that I need to trust myself and trust my own instincts, because I actually have really good instincts. So counseling has really helped me to that with spiritual direction has really helped me to figure out who I am and to help me unpack this shame and guilt that I felt in having this struggle, and realizing that there was some legitimate reasons why I was struggling so deeply with this, and that I continue at times to struggle with it. So for me, counseling was an absolute lifesaver. So that's kind of where I'm going to end today. There is a part 3 to this story that I do want to share, but that was kind of my 20s, was this constant instability and never knowing where I was going to be living, what I was going to be doing, where I was going to be working, and then finally finding some stability in my life. But then because I found that stability, things started coming out again. And then having the wonderful counselor that I have that has helped me to come to this healing journey and helped me to realize what an amazing person I actually am, what a strong person I am. Those who look inside themselves and find the strength to overcome these things are the ones who are strong. And one of my favorite things that she said to me is, Elise, I'm not afraid of the people who are coming to counseling because they're actually dealing with the things they need to deal with. The ones that scare me are the ones who won't come to counseling because they can't admit that they're struggling and they won't ever overcome these things because of it. So I am pro counselor for sure. Definitely have to find the right one for you, because I think counselors can be equally as bad as they are good if you don't have the right ones. So I've been blessed with a really amazing counselor and counselors over the years, and I've had some bad ones too. So that's where I'm going to end for today. I will pick up with my other video on part 3 of my story. So y'all have a wonderful day and much love. Don't give up. Don't ever give up. There's always hope.